Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from Last Stand Gamers, and welcome. So today I wanted to spend a little bit of time looking at some of the new modifications that have came out on the workshop, as well as talking about some really important features of Space Engineers, as well as trying to get your opinions and feedback on what you want the game to become. So first of all, let's have a look at this cockpit. Now this cockpit can be found on the Steam Workshop. It's designed by Darth Biomech, and I have to say, if you're anything like me and you really struggle to design interesting looking ships, this cockpit really makes a difference. Its modeling's really nice, both interior and external. You've got these sort of burn, sort of scratch marks on the cockpit. Really nice, and it really fits in with that standard old school sort of cockpit as well. And you've got these like little attachments, so I'll hop inside so I can see what it's like. You can see you've got this really nice wedge sort of fighter cockpit. You've got a really nice open space, you can really see around you as well. You've got all the buttons like a keyboard and just loads of interesting little features and switches and dials, just what you'd expect from a cockpit. But what makes this even more interesting is how you can attach blocks to it that easily. You can literally get these slope sort of blocks and really get that sort of really nice fighter cockpit design. As you can see there, we can bring a nose into it and do all sorts of designs. So these are the ships that I've just remodified with this cockpit. This was the standard fighter that is issued to you on your start world, and you can see that there. So that's the standard cockpit, but you can just see how much flair and how lovely it looks with that new cockpit. It just brings this whole sort of arc and curve into this. I always thought that they should allow us to use glass on the small ships, and then we could build our glass around that sort of cockpit. But you can just see how beautiful that makes it look. You can have these really nice curves, and it just flows so well into the engine bay at the back. So I'll move on. So this is the standard sort of engineering ship now for the standard survival. See, it's got that square sort of truck, almost like cockpit. And this is one with the fighter style cockpit. Once again, it's just making it look much more like a space sort of ship. Really nice, and you can really integrate it into your designs really easily. So over here we have the drill version, and we have the standard drill version. You can just see how nice and effective that cockpit makes these ships turn out. I mean, simple little bit of curvature to your ship, and it's there. It's all in that one design. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the designs I've added. Now, this is one that you've seen in a lot of different episodes. This is just a standard sort of troop transport. It's got some weapons on the side and weapons on the back. And I never really liked this design. The cockpit always looked too square, too blocky at the front. But now look at this. Wow. When I first took them two cockpits on, I was like, whoa. That looks like something super futuristic, something really badass. I mean, and obviously it's got all the standard sort of settings. So if I hop in, it has all the things that the basic one would have in the department of landing gear and so on. But just wow. It just looks so cool. So we can disengage our landing gears. We can bring our landing gears, fold them back. We can retract them in. Wow, this cockpit just brings such another level of like aesthetic sort of pleasing to the game. Now if we move on, we've got some other sort of small fighter crafts. Now this was sort of a modification of Henry that I built with this new cockpit, just to try out, see what the design would look like. And it looked really nice. It looked really nice indeed. But then I took it a little bit further to the next level, extended the nose out on it like this, and this is just a fighter that I've fallen in love with now since I built it. I'm never really a fan of heavy armored fighters because the heavy armor always looks a bit cluttery. But this looks super cool. Anyway, let's fly off over to the wreck ship over there and have a look at some modifications. So I'll bring this up, fold our gears away, bring our pistons up, and off we go. So over here. Now, heavy ships never tend to fly as well as the lighter variants, but they've got the heavy army, they've got the weaponry, and they can normally do the job quite effectively. So we've got a large ship over here that's been shipwrecked, and it was originally going to be one of my survival worlds, where you'd start out on this sort of ship. But inside here is what I really want to show you, so we'll just land this on the wreck here if we can. We can just hop out, so I'll bring that down for a landing, clip it on so it doesn't drift off, fold out our gears, and we'll just clip onto there like so. Right, there we go. And now with that docked, we'll head on inside and I'll show you some of the rest of the mods. So you might notice that I've got this sort of rusty, sort of crusty sort of equipment. I just think it looks really cool having some grungy sort of space equipment rather than all that bright stuff. This is actually used equipment by ShadowFlux. That's on the Steam Workshop. All the links for these will be in the description below. And it just brings that sort of interesting aesthetic, sort of pleasing value. They do all the same things. This is like a large reactor. and there's a few other blocks. We've got like a control seat with all sorts of buttons and gizmos. We've got some cameras and different facilities. But it's just really cool having these different sorts of modifications. And this area here is my hydroponics sort of facility where I'm growing sort of plants in these little chambers, and that's something that really brought me onto this next level. So this is another Darth Biomech modification. You can see all the plants and little life growing on in there with the light and the oxygen. And this brought me onto the next level, food and water in Space Engineers. Is it something that you guys would like to see? I mean, is it something that would be really cool? Like, I mean, you could take your suit off, for instance, and you stop your suit from charging, and you have to eat and do all the little tasks like that to increase that sort of level of survivability. I don't know, it'd be really interesting. Just pressurization in general would be something really cool. So you could just be pressurized behind the windows and behind the doors and have to have airlocks, and it'd just be really complicated. But at the same time, it'd make the game so much more exciting, especially having to eat and to grow your own food. It'd just be that one more level to survival that would make it so much harder. And I don't know what you guys feel about that at the moment, but I'd love to hear your sort of feedback. So I just wanted to show off them sort of mods today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a mess around with this map a little bit further, and I might turn this into some sort of survival crash site to play with as an alternative, rather than the big red crash ship. Because you can see the shipwreck there. It's pretty damn cool. And I think it'd be a little bit harder as well because there's no sort of processors or creators or assemblers in here. You'd have to scramble all this equipment, and even with the sort of damaging asteroids coming down below, you'd have your little turret to defend you, and maybe you'd survive just long enough to get your base operational. But who knows? I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I would like to have a little bit of a think about what I've said today, and what would you like to see in Space Engineers next. That's all for now, and I'll see you next time.